The research station floated in high orbit above Earth, an unassuming structure made of silver plates and reinforced glass. Its true purpose remained hidden from the inhabitants below. It belonged to the Vork's Collective, a species renowned across the galactic community for their meticulous scientific methods and rigorous risk assessments. No species had ever been classified as excessively dangerous before, not the predators of Zager 6, not the hyper-intelligent swarms of Drenal, nor even the war-hardened Plens who had left devastation in their conflicts. Yet, preliminary scans of humanity had triggered red alerts across their analytical matrix. Chief Biologist Heenis stood in the observation chamber, his pale blue eyes scanning the transparent containment room where 3 human test subjects sat. They had volunteered, perhaps out of curiosity, perhaps for the generous compensation offered by the Collective. Heenis did not understand them yet, but that was his mission. Commencing primary assessment, Heenis announced, his segmented fingers tapping on the console before him. His assistant, Vault, adjusted the observation sensors. The humans, designated Samuel Carter, Elena Vasquez, and Daniel NJI, sat comfortably. A few had even requested snacks, which had puzzled the research team, but were granted nonetheless. "We will begin with baseline tests," Heenis said through the translation interface. "Please state your species name for our records." "Humans," Carter answered, stretching his arms as though waking from a nap. "Homo sapiens. If you want to be fancy about it." Heenis noted the response and moved on. "Basic metabolic analysis will follow. Please remain still." The containment chamber filled with soft pulses of scanning light. Vork's medical technology could map every cell, track blood flow, and measure neural activity in real time. The initial reading scrolled across the display, and Heenis frowned. "Is something wrong?" Vault asked. Heenis recalibrated the sensors, but the results remained unchanged. He gestured for a deeper scan. "Their cellular regeneration is abnormal. They recover from tissue damage at a rate significantly beyond standard biological expectations. That's a good thing, right?" Carter said, munching on a protein bar. "Faster healing and all that." Heenis hesitated. "That is not the concern. It's the method. The level of adaptability here is excessive." He pulled up a comparative model. "Most species heal within a range defined by their evolutionary lineage. Their DNA sequences remain relatively stable. But humans, look at this." Heenis zoomed in on a section of the genetic structure. "Their bodies actively adjust to environmental conditions at a speed that should not be possible. Their immune response mutates in real time. That's what vaccines are for," Vasquez said, leaning forward. "You expose us to something, and our bodies figure it out. Exposure-based adaptation is normal," Vault countered, "but your genome rewrites itself even without external engineering. That level of self-modification is dangerous." Carter raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous to who?" Heenis did not answer. He was already initiating the next phase of tests. Their muscle efficiency was unnaturally high for a bipedal species of their mass. Their neural activity fluctuated in a pattern, suggesting subconscious recalibration to new stimuli. Even their pain threshold was inconsistent. During a reflex test, Carter barely reacted to a sharp stimulus but winced at minor pressure moments later. "They override pain perception at will," Vault observed, horrified. "That is not normal. No species does that." NJI grinned. "We call it mind over matter." The data was overwhelming. Humans weren't just adaptive. They were excessive in every biological metric. They endured extreme conditions, healed at unnatural speeds, and altered their physiology in response to threats without engineered intervention. Heenis turned to his assistant. "Initiate endurance testing." The chamber's temperature dropped rapidly, mimicking the harshness of an exposed tundra. Vasquez shivered, but adjusted her posture to conserve warmth. NJI exhaled sharply, his breath visible in the freezing air. Carter tucked his arms into his jacket and sighed. "This reminds me of winter training," Carter said. "You ever been to Minnesota in January?" The cold intensified. Most species exposed to these conditions would exhibit systemic distress. The humans, however, they're adjusting, Vault whispered. Their core temperatures are compensating. Their blood flow is redistributing. Carter rubbed his hands together. You guys got any hot cocoa in this place? Heenis ended the test. The temperature returned to normal. The humans flexed their fingers and stretched as if nothing had happened. Let's try heat resistance, Heenis suggested. A minute later, the chamber filled with simulated desert heat. Carter and Vasquez began sweating. NJI removed his jacket and wiped his brow. Their hydration levels fluctuated, but they remained functional. How? Vault murmured. How are they adapting so quickly? Carter smirked. You should see us in a sauna. Heenis halted the environmental trials. It was clear these subjects were not just resilient. They were unnatural. We need to run controlled injury response simulations, Vault suggested. Carter raised a hand. Define injury. Minor, of course, Heenis said. A small cut to monitor tissue response. NJI shrugged. Fine by me. A sterile mechanical arm extended into the chamber, a precise scalpel at its end. It made a shallow incision across NJI's forearm. He barely flinched. Within seconds, the wound began closing. In under a minute, only faint redness remained. Vault felt a rare chill of unease. That level of repair speed should not be possible. Neat trick, Vasquez said. You should see what happens when we break bones. Heenis turned to his team. Send an urgent memo to the Risk Assessment Division. I want a full-scale threat analysis before proceeding with further testing. Vault hesitated. Are we really calling them a threat already? Heenis stared through the glass at the humans, who were now casually discussing Earth food. He thought of their regenerative abilities, their rapid adaptation, their defiance of known biological limits. For the first time, the Vork's collective faced a species classified as too dangerous. Extremes to humans were put through a series of metabolic strain tests there. Bodies were deprived of key nutrients, exposed to varying atmospheric compositions, and even tested for resistance to toxic substances and controlled doses. What they found defied reason. Humans endured. They withstood low oxygen environments longer than expected there. Bodies adjusted to foreign protein. Structures without severe allergic reactions. Their metabolism compensated for energy deficits in a way that was almost predatory, burning stored resources with perfect efficiency. NG after hours of testing was still cracking jokes. I don't know what you guys were expecting, but we kind of thrive on adversity. Heenis exchanged a look with Vault. That is the problem, he said under his breath. At the end of the day, Heenis was summoned to a high-priority conference. With the Vork Advisory Board, he stood before the projected image of Director Xena, a high-ranking member of the Risk Division. The latest results she asked. Heenis sent over the compiled data. There was a long silence as Zer reviewed it. Then she looked up, her expression unreadable. Your recommendation? Heenis hesitated. They are not actively hostile, but their biological nature is concerning. Z repeated. They heal unnaturally fast. They withstand extreme conditions with ease. Their brains optimize faster than any species we have ever studied. This is not just concerning, Heenis. This is catastrophic. Heenis remained silent. He could not argue against the facts. He leaned forward. If they were to be exposed to certain military advancements, if they adapted to higher levels of combat training, they could become uncontrollable. A species that evolves in real time, one that thrives under stress. If weaponized, they would be unstoppable. A cold weight settled in Hina. Stomach, you are authorized to proceed with containment protocols. Z ordered. We will make a final determination within the next cycle if the risks are too great. We will classify them as a galactic level hazard. Hina swallowed. And what does that mean? Z's voice was Quiet it means we would need to consider. Elimination, the screen went. Dark Heinous turned back toward the observation chamber the humans were, playing some sort of hand-slapping game. Laughing at each other's reactions, they had no idea what was being discussed. Behind closed doors for the first time, in his long career, Heinous was afraid. Humans weren't just adaptable, they were impossible. The station's emergency protocols, activated at exactly 0700 hours, a dull red light pulsed along the walls and an automated voice echoed through the corridors. Containment breach detected. Biological integrity compromised. Initiating Level 2 isolation. Procedures. Heinous sprinted toward the observation deck, his mind racing. A breach impossible. The containment systems were designed to withstand everything from chemical leaks to hazard outbreaks. The humans were still in their chamber, weren't they? Vault was already there when he arrived, his expression stricken. It's not what you think, he said quickly. The humans didn't escape, but he pointed at the data screen, struggling to find the words. Heinous followed his gaze. The containment chamber still held all three humans. Carter was doing push-ups. NG was sitting cross-legged, tossing a small ration pack in the air and catching it absent-minded. Vasquez was humming completely unfazed. The system flagged them as a breach. Heinous asked, confused. Not them. Vault swallowed their microbiome. Heinous turned sharply. Explain. Vault pulled up the magnified bioscans. Their bodies are covered in microorganisms, thousands of species, all living symbiotically. We assumed they were harmless passengers like most species have, but he zoomed in further. Some of these organisms show adaptive behavior independent of their host. They mutate alongside the human immune system. They are evolving in real time. Heinous felt an unfamiliar sensation creep into his chest that shouldn't be possible. It's worse. Vault said some of these microbes entered the station's filtration system through normal air. Exchange. The station's sterilization protocols neutralized most of them, but a few survived, and they adapted to our sterilization methods. Heinous stared at him. You're saying that their microbiome is evolving against our containment measures? Vault nodded grimly. We ran a test. Standard decontamination cycles kill 99.9% of known pathogens instantly. These, he gestured to the display, they came back resistant within 3 hours. The next cycle took out most of them again, but a handful survived and adapted. Again, Heinous felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. This is not just about the humans anymore. Vault continued. It's what comes with them. They don't just survive environments, they change them. Their bodies are factories for biological mutation. Heinous turned his gaze back to the containment chamber. The humans were laughing about something completely unaware of the quiet catastrophe they had just triggered. We have to isolate them further, he said, his voice tight. If their microbiome can adjust to sterilization, there's no telling what prolonged exposure to our station could do. Vault hesitated. There's more. Heinous exhaled sharply. Go on the humans, they heal fast. We know that, but their microbiome helps them heal faster. Some of these bacteria actively aid tissue regeneration. Others attack foreign pathogens so aggressively that it's like having an entire auxiliary immune system. Heinous clenched his jaw. They carry an evolving biological arsenal inside their own bodies. Vault nodded, and they don't even know it. Heinous turned to the containment chamber. One last time, we have to make a decision now. Vault met his gaze. What do we do? Hen's fingers hovered over the station security console. Quarantine was no longer enough. These creatures, these humans, had to be classified correctly, not just as a risk, as a threat. The emergency risk assessment came back within the hour. The humans were officially designated a Class 5 biological hazard. No species in recorded history had ever received that Classification, even the most aggressive, warlike empires were only labeled as Class 4 extreme threat, but this wasn't about aggression, it was about uncontrollable. Adaptability. Hyenas stood outside the containment chamber watching the humans. Through the reinforced glass they had no idea what had just happened, no idea that the station's highest governing body had convened to decide what to do about them. No idea that their very presence had triggered extermination. Protocols they can't leave vault. Whispered beside him, if they return to their home world, we lose all control over this situation. Heinous nodded slowly. We need to act before the next shift change, before anyone questions the lockdown inside the chamber. Carter yawned and stretched. So any updates you guys figure out how weird we are? Yet Heinous stepped forward, activating the intercom. The results are concerning, he admitted. NG smirked. That bad? Huh, you don't understand, Vault said. Your bodies are. He hesitated, then just said, you shouldn't exist. No species should be able to do what you do. Vasquez raised an eyebrow. Well, that's dramatic. Carter chuckled. Come on, we're not that bad. Yeah, we heal fast. We can handle heat and cold, and we've got some funky bacteria, but that just makes us tough.